you're all very much welcome. Good morning. And in a very short while, I'm going to go through introduction, and I give you a chance to give a brief summary of yourself, and then we'll go straight through to what we're here for today. But what I want to do before we start, just to give a little bit of introduction as to who we are. So we are Settlement Support, a community interest company. And what we do is we focus on providing settlement and integration support service for Africans and other disadvantaged migrants within the United Kingdom. This conversation is about Black History Month celebration, and it is about our Black Mastermind Forum. So we're wanting to come in and engage with each other in relation to Black History Month, as to how Black people have come and how Black people are doing in the workplace today. So we'll be getting into that in a few moments, but a little bit more about what we do as Settlement Support. Basically, our services include settlement and integration services. We also provide immigrant advocacy services. We collaborate with other government organizations and our local councils in the provision of similar services. We raise awareness to government about government agenda to the people in the migrant communities and disadvantaged migrants, and also Black and minority ethnic background individuals. Our goal is to break barriers to employment, and therefore we've been doing activities in that area. We've got a project to encourage the intake of STEM for girls in higher education, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And one of the key things that we do is we empower through education. And then lastly, we enable projects to help Africa through partnerships. So if you know of other organizations who are doing similar things as we are doing, then you are very much welcome to introduce them to us. And then essentially, we are able to partner with such organizations to support other programs that's going on in that area. A lot of the time, these services are not dissimilar to what you find around us, but we try to kind of differentiate a little bit, because our goal is not just to focus on a bottom-up approach where we're just dealing with settlement and integration services, but our goal is to gradually move into corporate organizations and get corporate to understand the backgrounds and the needs of Black and minority ethnic individuals within the workplace. And so we are supporting individuals in getting there. And then our goal is to be able to get into those kind of spaces and encourage the conversations that we'll be having today and other similar conversations. All right, so that basically brings us today to the individuals that we've got who are supporting us today. And before we do, I'm just gonna introduce myself firstly. So my name is Kofi Folson, and my background is IT, and I kind of work in the IT space. But I'm also passionate about community things. I'm passionate about, community programs. And, I was pleased to find myself aligned with Byron. And Byron, when I met Byron, he had, a heart to continue doing a lot of these community events, reaching out and providing sort of advocacy services within the ethnic minority and also disadvantaged African migrant communities. And when I heard what he wanted to do, I felt it was a good initiative. I wanted to be part of it. And so I decided to support Byron in the vision that he had. And that basically resulted in Settlement Support. And it was not just myself. I think Byron had been reaching out to other people within his network and within his environment. and he's managed to, encourage other people and gotten other people to be involved in this kind of agenda. So by way of introduction, that's me, Kofi, and I'll just want to introduce Byron and then allow him to say a little bit about himself, and then I'll do likewise with everybody. So Byron, I know Byron very well. He's one of the founders of Settlement Support, or he is the founder. And I just want him to, kind of share a little bit about his own background and why he believes this particular forum is important. Byron?
It's all about a passion to get people together to help other people. So for us, as the opportunity to celebrate Black History Month, I thought that this is the time for us to focus on the youth. I mean, this forum seeks to gather our experiences, particularly to encourage other youth that in spite of all the barriers and challenges, we can defy the odds and make it. And again, the particular reason for this is to encourage the youth, Black youth, to find hope in whatever challenges they are having. So that's by way of introducing why we are here today. So that's by way of introduction. Byron, I'm passionate about getting people together to help other people. My background is in communication leadership and management consultancy. I'm now with Amazon as a health and safety coordinator, but it all works out to we working together to help and to light a candle, to light another candle, to make this world a better place for all. Thank you, Kofi.
Okay, thank you so much, Byron, and that's really a good introduction. Georgia, I would want you to, obviously give yourself a brief introduction, and we are very much happy to have you here this morning, Georgia.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. So my name is Georgia. I am the general manager of Amazon EMA2. So EMA2 is a fulfillment center in East Midlands in England. So pretty much my story, I would say I'm originally Nigerian. So I was born and raised in Nigeria. I studied in Nigeria, my university. I had a BSc, or I have a BSc in accounting from University of Port Harcourt in Nigeria. And then when I graduated from university, I worked in audit industry. So I was with KPMG PwC for about 5.5 years. Then I got a scholarship to do my master's. I got a scholarship to do my master's in France, a school called EDEC Business School. So I moved to France in 2015 to do my master's in international accounting and finance. And then whilst I was wrapping up my master's, obviously I had to start job hunting. Originally I was like job hunting, trying to go back into the audit industry, but was not really getting much traction on like the places that I was applying to. I think a lot of things were centered around obviously not having the work permits, and then also not being fluent in French. So those are like big blockers that I had during that job hunting phase. But one day in school, Amazon came to school for a career fair, and they were talking about a program, a Pathways Operations Management program, and how it works. The leadership is like a leadership development program, pretty much like a fast track leadership development program. They normally target people just finishing their MBAs or their MScs, and they have at least 5 years working experience. So I heard about a program. Obviously, coming from finance and accounting, operations was never really on my mind, but I was like, okay, it sounded a bit exciting, like they had this really nice career trajectory and all of that. And I'm like, okay, the least I can do is apply and just see what the process is like. So I did apply, went through their interview stages, and then I was successful. I got an offer And for them, not speaking French was not a blocker because the program runs in different countries in Europe. So they just said they'll put me in a country where that speaks fluent English, which is why I'm in England today. And then also like the work permit was also not a blocker because then they were able to sponsor work permits. So it was actually good to hear. And then I was like, okay, so this is me transitioning from accounting to operations. Let's go see what it looks like. I gave myself 1 year that let me do it for 1 year. If I don't like it, then I'll just pretty much pack my bags and go back home and just try and get a job in accounting. But here I am 5 years down the line. I'm still with Amazon. I'm still in operations. I do not even remember any of my accounting things anymore. And all the financial standards that I had to learn all those years ago, completely out of my brain now. So I pretty much stayed with Amazon. It's been a nice 5 years, true to the awards, the career trajectory that they talked about during that career fair has just really been exactly that. So I've gone from being an operations manager to a senior operations manager to a site lead, and then recently a general manager over those 5 years. So it's well, outside of Amazon, I volunteer in Slum to School Africa. So Slum to School Africa is a charity that sponsors really young children. So talking about like 6 to 9 years, primary school children that cannot afford education in Nigeria, sponsors them into primary schools. And now we're even going towards like secondary schools and stuff. So I volunteer with Slum to School as one of their finance members in Slum to School. So overall, I'm really happy to be here today because I acknowledge that what you all are doing is extremely important, like being able to support the community, to give back to the community. Even with Amazon, I am the president of the Black Employee Network with Amazon. So I launched the Black Employee Network last year for our operations organization. And the network has grown significantly in a 1 year space. And it's that ability to be able to have vision is just really centered around recruiting, developing and engaging its best Black and ethnic minority talents. And over that 1 year, we've run so many activities centered around those 3 vision points. So it's always good to just really be able to make an impact, I would say, make an impact selflessly, because I mean, there's nothing you're getting out of that in return necessarily. So it's that selfless impact back to the community to show people that, look, this is possible. There are so many possibilities out there. We need to stop with the stereotypes and we need to apply ourselves and just develop ourselves and ensure that we are exhibiting excellence. And the moment we have all of this, then we'll be able to grow, we'll be able to, break and shatter that glass ceiling, and we'll be able to do all that we can possibly do. So yeah, I'm glad to be a part of all this.
Thank you so much. Look, I think that's so inspiring. I believe that you'll be glad to hear other people's stories. If you can stay today, I think you're really going to be happy that you stayed. So thank you so much. Your story is inspiring. I am going to allow Latoya to also introduce herself, and I'm pretty sure she's going to be drawing some parallels to your story. I've known Latoya for a while, and I see her as a very passionate leader, wants to accomplish a number of things. Toya, do you want to introduce yourself?
I kind of like had a hint you were going to pick on me next. Hello, I'm Latoya Clark-Nivor. So Georgia, you kind of hit a string when you told me, you had been studying in France, because I am French, and I would say Jamaican French at the first go. Knowing EDHEC very well, because I was a former program manager at ESSEC, we've got competition between us, don't we? So who am I? I am Latoya, as I said before, CEO of Connect 2 Dots, which is a change management and learning and development consultancy. We provide services in change management and learning and development in IT projects, specializing mostly with D365. Been in the IT and other industries for over 20 years. I'm a former teacher and modern languages teacher, training and teaching Spanish and French. Where do I start? Is this a brief one, Kofi? Tell me.
Crack on to it, crack on.
So,
what we do is we just get David to introduce himself as well. I've known David for a while, and I'm very glad that he managed to make it. I think he's got some very much like everyone engagement this morning, but he's managed to join us this morning. Over to you, David.
Thanks, Kofi. Well, my name is David. Probably not got a flowery story as Georgia does. But yeah, I've been in the UK since 2002. I came here on scholarship as well. Originally studied in University of Ghana, did economics, and then started my career working in a bank in Ghana. SSB to be precise, for those who are coming from Ghana. So I was there for a couple of years, got a scholarship to study at Nottingham University and was there for a year. A bit like Georgia, I was trying to change my career from finance into the food industry because I just liked that sort of thing, but it didn't quite work. So I fell back into banking and joined Halifax Bank of Scotland way back in 2004. And my life has just been banking. So I've gone from Bank of Scotland to Arabic Banks and back to Royal Bank of Scotland, and so sort of moved through the ranks. My focus is on real estate. So we do real estate finance in the UK for corporates and in general sort of SPV type structures for those who want to build huge real estate establishments. Sorry guys, just a minute. So my missus is here eavesdropping on my conversation. Anyway, so I currently work with Bank ABC, which is basically a brand name for Arab Banking Corporation, currently focused on real estate. It's been an interesting journey. I mean, being obviously a black guy, you always find yourself in an industry which, for those of you who know anything about real estate, it's predominantly men and it's predominantly white. And so you find yourself in a sector where you're always trying to climb this ladder to make yourself known. And I always tell a story which really drives home certain things which currently, so I'm with our diversity and inclusion committee with the bank. And I guess as we go along, I'll probably tell that story if it becomes necessary. But essentially, we are in a place where we just feel the need. As Georgia pointed out, you find yourself in a position and you want to help others to either deal with the prejudice that comes along as you seek to sort of do well in the sector, and basically break the boundaries and be confident enough to stand your ground where you have opportunity to, because there is this, when that glass ceiling is there and it's very low, you really sometimes are so intimidated that you don't even make attempts to touch it, even to break it. So it's more about encouraging people, do what you have to do, study as much as you have to study, and then make sure that you can stand up and be counted. But yeah, so I'm grateful, Kofi, for inviting me to this to share thoughts as we go along. And it'll be interesting to hear what people have to say on their day-to-day experiences. And that's me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So thanks a lot for all of that. I know Tanique is there and I know her video is off. But Tanique, if you want to, hi, it's so good to see you. We know each other, but I just want you to obviously introduce yourself, because I think that we've got so much to share together.
Okay. Hello everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Tanique Williams. I'm currently a functional consultant working with Power Objects, and this was possible through Latoya and Kofi. you know, with the amazing help that they've offered me. So I'm originally from Jamaica. I came to the UK in about 2000. And I came here when I was 15, went to college here, went to Birmingham University here, and finished my degree, and I could not get a job. I think I sent over 100 applications, couldn't get a job. And my breakthrough came the local council in Walsall. And I wanted to go into networking because my degree is in computer networks and security. And I could not get a job. I got interviewed and I was told that, you know, it's too hard for me. I'm a girl, I might break a nail and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. If, you know, if that's how you feel. So I had to settle for a job on the service desk. So I thought in my head, you know, I could work my way up. Naive, obviously, not knowing, obviously, the politics of the council and everything, or even the workplace. So I started on the service desk. I was there for like 5 years. And I'm like, surely there must be other opportunities that, you know, I can, because I just felt like I've got this degree and nothing's happening. My brain was going dead because doing the same thing over and over, I wasn't being challenged or anything. So I got interviewed for a secondment opportunity and application support team. And I was doing that for a while, actually, for about maybe another 5 years. And I was training someone else up on the team for a senior post. They got the job, I didn't, you know, so that kind of was very upsetting. And I was like, okay, you know, a change has to come or something. So I met Latoya and I mentioned to her that, you know what, I'm looking for a job, I need a job. And she's like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm in IT. And she's like, we've known each other for so long and I didn't know. So yeah, she was at Power Objects at the time, sent her my CV. Long story short, got interviewed, got the job as a learning consultant. And through her, I mean, Latoya is a very driven person. One thing I love about her, she's very driven, you know, and if she sees potential in you, by God, she's going to bring the best out in you. And that's one thing, you know, the support that she gives, and emotionally and physically as well. So, you know, shout out to you for that. And then I joined a CIT program recently at my company, which is a consultant in training, which again, Kofi has been instrumental in me achieving that goal and becoming a functional consultant with the constant help and everything. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I feel so bad because constantly taking away from his family and everything. That's my journey to tech started. And with regards to what we're doing now, with regards to support for the Black community, I'm an advocate for that. I'm all for it. You know, I believe you be the change that you want to see. And if we can get as many people like us into tech, into the workplace, I'm all for it. So that's me, my short story.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's really good. There's so much to say. I'm not even sure about the time that we've got, knowing what people have got in the stories. And as Latoya went through and Tanique went through and saying what she's been saying, it just basically resonates with the kind of conversations that we've been having, you know, with some of our webinars that we've been going through, and all our stories come together. But before we move into it, and we allow Georgia to come in with our, you know, first question and thoughts, I just want to say, Chris, do you want to say anything before? Because this is planned to be a small closed session, and that's why on this particular webinar we didn't throw it out to everyone. We just want a close conversation on this one. Go on, Chris.
Good morning. Well, it's afternoon now. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, credit to Latoya.
On mute.
You've gone mute.
I actually coming to listen. I didn't realize the magnitude of what I was walking into, but I'm so grateful to have been given that opportunity. My story is a bit different. I'm a father and a husband, and also I work within the health service. But before that, just coming into this country, it was understanding the limitations around me and, you know, trying to actually break those glass ceilings, which over time became quite instrumental and powerful because I'm a driven person by nature. You know, I'm quite positive in what I do. I remember my sister introducing me to a call center while I was studying and while I was going to college. And I got the job thinking that, yeah, that's what it's going to be. I'm just going to be a call center handler. But immediately when I got into that role, my drive, and because I'm so driven, it actually took me further than just being an agent. So it then took me to be one of the quality controllers within the organization. And after being a quality controller for a while, I thought to myself, you know what, I kind of feel like I want more. So I then went on with a secondment within the same organization to be an executive support officer, dealing with the sales and business aspects within there. While I was doing that, I was mentored by Glenn Joseph and Simon Maydew, directors at the time. And it kind of molded me to say, you know, stop limiting yourself, young man. You know, you've got more potential in you. So I then went on back up into the call center, but this time I went in as the call center administrator, dealing with all the financial affair, payroll, and just structuring things on a day-to-day basis. And then my wife said to me one day, you should actually come into the NHS because you do so well. And I'm like, me, NHS? I don't think they would want me. So position came up as a recruitment officer, and I so went and I did the interview, and I was indeed successful. And I got into the NHS as a recruitment officer. But while I was there, it's quite strange and funny because I just wanted a bit more, because after doing the recruitment officer position for a year, I thought to myself, no, I need patient care. So I went into the coordinating side of it, and that spiraled me, you know, funny enough, based on the multidisciplinary individuals that I was working amongst, it spiraled me straight into capacity management in the operational circle, and dealing now with deputy chief executive officers and stuff. So it kind of start broadening my mindset to say, wow, is this me? So the Lord actually gave me the desire to go and do further studies. And I went off to do my master's, and I was quite successful at that. And then I transited into the community world for 3 years, working as a locality team manager, developing that angle, seeing how the NHS work from both sides, from the acute into community. And once I actually got that under my belt, I came back into the acute side within directorate management, and then went on to, you know, business and performance management. So that's where I'm sitting at the moment. Whether or not I'm comfortable, I know I'm not. I do a lot of work as well with the trust around race inclusion and equality and diversity. That has actually, yeah, got us an award last night. You know, we're doing so much within the trust to shape people's mindset. We're trying to be the change agents that is required within it. But it requires a lot of hard work. It requires a lot of dedication and focus, and, you know, and not to be distracted with everything that's going on around personal life and work in particular, but just sticking to the agenda. So that's just a little bit about me at the moment.
Thank you so much, Chris. That's really nice to share, and it's good to also, you know, get to know your journey. So we want to get straight into it. So the population in the United Kingdom for Black people generally is increasing. And I've got some stats with me. I'm not necessarily going to go into all of the stats, but essentially the current population of white people has decreased from roughly about 94% to 86% of the total population of the United Kingdom. And there is an increase of the non-white population, and consequently an increase of the Black population in the United Kingdom. What I want to guess, or what I want to get out of this conversation is, you know, Georgia, do you think that the perception of Black people in the workplace have changed over the years? You know, we hear about the Windrush generation. We know about the the Asian generation that came in the 70s. We know about the West African generation that came in the 80s. And then we know about those who came in since the 2000s, and it keeps growing. But we want to know, is the perception of the Black person in the workplace changed? Latoya talks about microaggressions and talks about stereotyping, and we're going to get into that. But in your mind, is there any change, Georgia, on this area?
So I'll say it depends on the workplace, if we're being honest. Because you have some workplaces where they've come to, should I say, an enlightenment, or they've come to better appreciate like diversity and Black and ethnic minorities, because they understand the importance of actually having a diverse workforce, because it's extremely important. There are so many benefits. And if you do like the research and stuff, you see the benefits of having that diverse workforce. So some companies that have come to the realization of that and the appreciation of that ensure that in their workspaces, that those, should I say, like stereotypes, or those, like backward thinking kind of mentality that we had back then, or what people thought about, like Black people, they ensure that that's not happening in their workspaces. But then you still have some workspaces that are so behind, like centuries behind, that still, think that, okay, like a Black person cannot really do much or contribute much or have anything significant to offer. So I would say it really does depend on that. But I think one key thing, though, that I have seen in so many different spaces is, and I see this a lot even on LinkedIn, is that we have so many Black people doing amazing work in different companies, and Black people sitting in like higher positions, executive positions. And then I feel like as a community, we need to draw attention to it a bit more than we are doing. So for example, I'll say, for example, in some places, yeah, or so they might say, oh no, I don't think a Black woman can ever do this, or a Black person. And then you ask them, do you actually know that there's somebody already in that seat that is of the same color with you, and they might not know? So that's that lack of awareness that is there. But when they do realize that, oh, okay, there's actually somebody doing this, then you see people a bit more interested in wanting to grow or climb up that ladder, because it's almost like they have like an inspiration, or they know that, okay, it can happen. It has happened. So why can't it happen to me? So that's another bit that I would say we're also missing, that awareness piece. But so answer your question, depends on the workspace. So workspaces have made it like super safe. They have made it they have made diversity and inclusion. Inclusion is that key bit. I feel like diversity is the easy part, because it's just a numbers game. You can just get the numbers in. But ensuring that the people that do come in actually belong and feel included and valued, that's the key, or that's where the work is actually. So companies that have been able to nail that inclusion bit have conquered, that kind of like backward mentality. But some other workspaces still have a long way to go. So that's why when I speak to some people, I say, like, when you're looking to join a company, actually look out for stuff like this. Speak to people within that company to understand what's the inclusion mentality like. Because
before I go into Latoya and allow others to join, do you think that social media is played a part? Has it improved that situation, or do you think that the situation is still the same? And what is your personal experience as well? Because this is the thing that I want to get out of this conversation. What is your personal experience? We think and we believe that there is a change, there's a storm, there's a wave going on, but what are our experiences?
Social media has played a huge role. It's helped in that awareness bit that I was just saying, still needs some work, but at least it has helped improve the awareness bit. Personal experience, I would say, thankfully, I work with a business where DEI is at the center of everything they do. Like, we can't overemphasize DEI within Amazon, and we're always looking for opportunities to actually support diversity initiatives. In fact, I was even on a student conference 2 days ago where we were just talking about DEI and the different affinity groups. So not just about ethnicity, but also about gender, also about sexuality, also about people with disabilities, so many different sections of DEI, because we do understand that our customer base is diverse. So we want to have a workspace that actually reflects that customer base. So my personal experience, I would say there has been a significant change. There's a significant shift. It's almost like a mindset shift. And I actually say this to some people on my team, that when they look at me and they feel like, oh my God, we have a Black general manager. And I'm like, hold up, our senior global vice president is Black and she is female, you know, and that comes back to the awareness bit. A lot of people don't actually know that because obviously she's in Seattle. And I'm like, you know, don't think that I here in this fulfillment center, I'm like, you know, you feel like, this is actually the pick of it. And even when I look at her and realize that, you know what, our global senior vice president is Black and female, it makes me realize that one day that could be me actually occupying that position. So yeah, so it's been a good experience.
Great, excellent. So Latoya, you talk about microaggressions, you talk about stereotypes. Now, the Amazon is a very large workforce-based type organization with all sorts of people from all parts of the world in this huge organization, serving retail customers, millions of people. But you come from a consultancy background where the workforce tends to be a little bit, you know, closed up. Depending on organizations, your consultancy might be maybe to, you know, private type owned, you know, organizations. We're not talking 40,000 or even 10,000 employees. We're talking 400, 500, 100. What is your experience? And is the situation improving? What does it look like in the corporate world?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
All right, awesome. I'm happy to hear that Georgia is having such a very positive and open, you know, experience, and that is to be encouraged and definitely continued. Now, in comparison to my experience, you know, and an idea that she had even picked up on from the get-go of her opening was the fact that she was in France, and based on, you know, the fact that she didn't speak French, and based on the fact that, you know, there was an issue with work permit and possibly other things, you know, getting employment even in France was an issue there. Well, that is my experience where, you know, having lived in France, and I'm just going to take you back just France compared to the UK, you know, where I was double mastered. I've got a master's in adult education as well as educational sciences, working with, you know, what would be the equivalent of, what is it? You know, CAC 40, you know, that's like the 500 Fortune companies, you know, equivalent in France, type of thing. And working with those companies, you know, even though I had experience and, you know, qualifications, the fact that I was Black and I probably went to interviews with an Afro, I was told that was not, you know, professional. You know, the fact that I went into interviews and, you know, when I go into the interview, all of a sudden I'm made to wait for half an hour because what I sounded like on the phone was not what they were expecting to get, you know, physically. So all of a sudden, you know, the role was no longer available. You know, those sort of experiences. I've had to, you know, rent apartments in France, for example, and when I go to visit the apartment, it's no longer available because, you know, the color doesn't fit, right? And so getting, you know, that experience in France from a lack of professional growth, and then moving over into the UK 6 years ago, where, you know, in France, you know, what I've aspired to in the UK was, you know, a dream for me. And here, moving into the UK, it has been, you know, doubled and tripled, and, you know, moving from an assistant to director, you know, in the UK, there has been positive work and positive experience with me coming into the UK. But in addition to that, I'm still very much open and aware of, even within corporate, even within my industry, you know, I am underrepresented. So I go in, you know, into meetings at a director level and I'm the only Black female. Most times I have to reiterate and prove and say why I should have a seat at the table. And most times, it's only when, they would probably ask a question and I respond that maybe seems to have some sense of, common sense, that it's highlighted as, probably knows what she's talking about. We could possibly consider, etc. So, it's been something that has been, at the core of my heart in terms of what does representation mean, and piggybacking off of what Tanique said and Georgia as well. For me, I've got this little acronym in terms of what it means to me to be Black within the UK in corporate, and the acronym is 1, M for mentorship, A for awareness, R for representation, and S for sponsorship. So Mars, kind of, and given that idea, you're out there as well, not necessarily on Earth, type of thing. And I think it's very important that we underline the importance that is up to us to educate our environment and the places which we, align with. On most of my projects, I have to, I quietly observe, and it's very rare that, there is enough Black representation. So I'm very vocal about that instance when and where I can. And so I partake in these initiatives, to build and to continue building that awareness. And just as Georgie said, I might be one person, but at the head, there is, aspirations, there is hope. And so I take it that is on my mission to encourage those, one hand pulls the other, one hand washes the other's back. We support, we represent, and of course we educate and build that awareness within the different industries. So that's what I've been doing.
Thanks for that. And that's really good. But I think that really connects with something that Tanique touched upon earlier on in relation to mentioning about, training somebody and then eventually that person, being put into or progressing to the next role. And I want to pick up on that. And I'm on this particular point, I'm going to allow everybody to say a little on this. And I'm going to start with you, David. Does competence necessarily translate to progression for the Black person in the workplace?
A number of things. I picked quite a few points from Georgia there, and also from Latoya, that indeed it depends on the organization. So competence does play a role if you're allowed to demonstrate it, but also taking some of Latoya's comments, and I'll give an example because I really went through quite precisely an instance which has formed my thinking for a great deal of my career, which is to do with what Latoya was saying in relation to how people hear you. When they see you, the behavior is different. It's quite amazing. And I'll give you a scenario. So I had opportunity to work in an organization, and I wouldn't mention any names, which was fairly diverse. So I was kind of accepted in the environment. I demonstrated my abilities, and so I had opportunity to work on restructuring finance on the biggest building in the City of London. A lot of you can imagine which one I'm talking about. It rises high up into the sky. And also to develop.
It starts with an S.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
And also to finance the development of a residential tower next to it, which you might have also seen. And I was working on this single-handedly. So I had a first meeting with a top law firm that was representing us in this transaction. So I go into a meeting and I get there, and as I said before, this is an industry really characterized by predominantly white people. So I went into this meeting and there were about 14 people. It was a mixture of women and men. And I was standing there, right? Now, the partner of this law firm who represents me, he comes into this meeting and makes a conscious effort to shake hands and greet almost everyone there, except me. The very person he's there to represent, he doesn't actually acknowledge his presence, right? Because he hasn't seen me before. So he gets to the end of the room, and it's then he asks someone, who is or where is David Berivison? Because obviously he's shaking lots of hands. No one said they were David. So someone points to me. Now, he walks up to me and asks to go outside. Now, it was an amazing, but I don't know what to think about it sometimes, but he apologized. Now, you don't really get that often. He did apologize, that in a sort of unconscious bias or whatever it was, walked past me, shook everyone's hand, probably thought maybe I was the tea man there to sort of make sure everyone was being served. And he literally apologized that he had that sort of mindset. Now he's a good friend of mine, but that sort of made me, so you believe it or not, every time I'm having a meeting with a client these days that I've never met, I go on LinkedIn and I connect with them so they can see who it is that they'll be meeting. So I don't want any surprises. I don't want us to meet and then you sort of think, oh gosh, I didn't realize it was this black geezer from wherever. So I sort of declare my status beforehand. But you see, I was competent, but the institutional bias that people can have, they tend to say they're diverse, inclusive, but when it comes to it practically, it can be quite challenging. And as Latoya said, you need to almost show your ability on the table. So if you find yourself sitting on the table not saying anything, it entrenches the mindset that perhaps you have nothing to offer after all. So you have to constantly be up at your game. And it's an unfortunate scenario to be in. So you go for an interview, you might say the same thing as everyone else, but because you're black, you just don't get to the next round. So somehow, as a black person, you need to double your efforts. You need to demonstrate your abilities twice more to get the same role, which is an unfortunate thing. But sometimes we say, oh, it's the reality of it. But we need to drive some change. and I know it's tough. So the question as to does competence play a role? It does. And even in my current job, and I go back to Georgia again, we talked about DI. So I'm on the committee in our organization for DI on various levels. And it's not just the DI, the D is always good. We're a very diverse organization. But the inclusivity, getting people's thoughts, getting cultures embedded within an organization is a tough ask. It really is a tough ask. And we have had this meeting, and I said, it's not even just about us in the organization, it's how we interact with people outside. So you or me, as a real estate financier, can be very biased who I do business with. And you will believe it or not, I have come across senior people who have said things like, I don't like working with Indians. I mean, how do you come to a place to get a transaction presented to you, but because they are Indians, you are immediately prejudiced? I wouldn't do this deal. You don't even know them. You haven't had a conversation with them. And so in my position, I'm sort of looking at the client interaction side more than probably how we behave in the organization. But I agree. If your question is about competence, I do think it plays a role. For the simple reason that if you're going to be able to do it in the first place, you need to be competent, right? That one, I agree with everyone. It's actually embarrassing when you find yourself thrown into the deep end and you cannot deliver. Then it makes the situation worse. The bias increases because you put yourself up that you can do something, but actually you couldn't. Yeah. So we need to work hard at actually being counted first of all. Yeah. But then once we've been counted in, to try and influence the people. So this group we're doing is to try and help our fellow Black community to recognize these elements, but at the same time, make sure that you're not found wanting as to the fundamental knowledge you need to do something.
Fantastic. And that's really good. I think there's a little bit more added onto that as to how we can improve that. And we will come to the impact of the workplace culture, or the significance of how culture actually plays into that inclusivity really there. But Tanique, how do you relate to that? Does competence actually translate into progression?
As my learned colleagues have all highlighted, yes and no at times, right? Because I've been in a situation where, yes, I'm competent, I've got my degree and I've got my experience, and someone who have just come in and I've trained this person, so I got the job and I didn't, you know? So whilst, yes, it does play a part, but as David has highlighted, we have got to work twice as hard, studied it twice as hard to ensure obviously our competence is shown, and we've got to demonstrate that based on in our doing, you know. So whilst obviously we know it's not fair, so it's a bit of a two-edged sword or two-sided sword. Yes, it does play a part, and then it does depend on where you are, you know, the organization as well. So let's face it, a lot of racism is inherited, you know, and throughout that inheritance, obviously, and society as well, people still see us as we're lazy, as a term that we're normally referred to. We're lazy if it's a case where we don't get something the first time around, or we're running late for something, or for example, when in terms it's due to probably poor mentorship, you know, or poor training. So yes, whilst we're competent, and I'm big and bold and I always say I'm Black, we're competent, no matter how many or how far we go in this, I'm always saying we're competent, we can do every and anything, right? You just need to give us a shot, you know. But being educated with our degrees and everything, yes, I've seen where, as I said, I've been left with a short straw, basically, by saying, well, you know, my face doesn't really fit, you know. So yeah.
Chris, what is your experience? I mean, I agree with a lot of some of the sentiments that Tanique is sharing there. You know, a lot of people and a lot of Black people actually believe that we've got to be twice better. But is that true? Or is there a case that if the people who are in the leadership were people of, you know, similar backgrounds and were a little bit more diverse ethnically, then potentially they would be able to identify somebody who is, you know, competent, and you don't have to be twice, you know, better. And I will, you know, allow you to speak, but I think Georgia will have a word to say on this, because in your environment where you believe that, you know, there is so much emphasis on diversity, what about inclusion? What about inclusion? So what's your experience, Chris? Do we have to be twice better?
I totally agree with everything Tanique just said, because it's about the reality that we live. Now, in respect to the whole competence level into progression, there is still a lot of work to be done. There is still acceptance that needs to be fine-tuned, so to speak. It's like we all know that within the health service, we've got a great percentage of ethnic minority working within the health service. But when you look at the top of the ladder for leadership, you know, we've got so many colleagues among us they've got their PhD, their masters, they are well educated, they're very highly skilled workers, but we don't have a lot of leaders at the top to represent the workforce. And that's something that it's eye-opening, and it's something that my organization is trying to change. And I think what I've come across is, with a lot of allyship that, you know, you do need them on the journey. And we do need mentors on the journey as well. And I'm talking now our Caucasian colleagues, you know, working with them, getting the people who really is trying to drive the inclusion agenda forward. We get them on board to believe in what we're doing. I personally don't think it is our place to educate them continuously. I do think they need to understand where it went wrong and what they need to do to put it right. I do also think that they too need to capture the diversity and the inclusion agenda to be within their hearts and not just, you know, a pretend situation where sometimes somebody will say, "How are you today?" But the moment you stop to respond to them, they're gone down the corridor. And you're thinking to yourself, did you really want to know how I am today? Because you've actually gone, you've not stopped to listen. And I think that's what they need to do in regards to the competency that they need to capture. And then once they do that within themselves, it will then start to make them think differently to help us to progress and, you know, and to go forward. And that's the angle that I'm looking at it from. You know, there's still so much work to be done. I've experienced it many a time where I've walked in as a Black manager, and I walk into the organization seeing so many things that, you know, you cannot function like that. And the moment you try to change things or to shape the direction of travel, that's sometimes where your competency, it blocks progression, because then you're dealing with the behavioral issues that come with that change that you're trying to make. Even it being a positive change, sometimes it's not received well. And it's the individual that are receiving the message that will also help to drive the progression. Those are my contributions.
I'm going to just throw this one in. So what do you think about the influence or the impact of cultural backgrounds? And I give you an example. So whilst your white colleagues probably all thinking about, going golfing and talking about skiing, and, there is a pub culture, and, there is, everything else that it's seen white, right? And then, we may be engaged, but it might be, in a minimal fashion. So there seem to be that outside of the workplace, we probably are not necessarily striking the chord on a social agenda. And it feels sometimes that because you're not in those circles, then although you are competent in the workplace and you're competent in the office space and you're doing what is required, it seems that some people are not seeing you, because it's almost like, the people who are in the clique or the inner circle are the ones who are essentially pushing the other people at the bottom into that circle. Do you think it's got an impact on that?
To be honest, Kofi, your point is valid, and I accept it. But how I've seen life over the years, especially in the corporate setup, is that we're all unique and we're all different. And what tick your box doesn't normally tick my box. The circle that you keep is not necessarily my circle, and vice versa with our Caucasian colleagues. Now, it is for us to have that inner belief and that purpose. When in our culture we talk a lot and we say purpose never dies. Well, I'm a strong believer for that. Purpose never dies, because if the Lord has ordained your steps to be the CEO of the British Airways or any high-tech company across the world, you can get there. Sometimes you get the desire of your heart, and we're looking from it now from a biblical perspective. The desire of your heart, the Lord knows the desire of your heart. And if you all rethink, if you're looking at some inner circle, so to speak, and the social circles around us. And there are many a time that you would aspire to be invited for a drink, but you're not considered, to go for that drink. But if we're being honest with ourselves, sometimes we know that we really don't want to go to drink with you, but it's still good to be asked. And I think those are some of the things that we wrestle with sometimes, or we try to deal with, because we know that outside of it all, we all have an agenda. We all have some clear goals that we've set ourselves. And I think sometimes let us not too focus on the inner circles and being invited, but invite yourself. Invite yourself to dinner. And sometimes you need to put people on the spot where you either invite them to dinner or you invite yourself to dinner. And I think that's how I look at it. And it's a take-home message.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Can I just
Go on. Go on.
Can I just say something? Yeah. Chris, I sort of get the understanding about inviting yourself, and I know it can sometimes be challenging. In my organization, I tend not to go for drinks. Okay, it's a known thing. David doesn't particularly like going for drinks, but yes, every time they're going, they let me know they're going, and I'm like, yeah, good luck. But Thursday night, I've always made a point. I've got 2 girls at home. I need to get home, and life goes on. So enjoy your drinks. On Friday morning, you get to work, and people come in late or they're hungover, and I'm not hungover, and I'm like, yeah, it's just the way it is. But at the same time, I know what the organization wants and needs on a day-to-day basis. And I guess I go back to George's statement. It always depends on where you work. Some places might be so big and your presence there is just not felt. Some places are slightly smaller. So my bank is probably medium sized. And our real estate team in the bank is not that huge, although we're just 8, but we're all men. Okay. And that has been my problem. So recently we had a vacancy and I said, I want an extra woman to join us as opposed to a man. And they sort of agreed with that concept, but we have struggled to fill the role. But that being aside, notwithstanding the way I behave and try and sit back and all that stuff, I still demonstrate the abilities that the bank needs for us to make money. So you're a relationship manager, we lend money. So find opportunities to lend money. And I have quite a lot of people within the industry that I know, and I bring that into the bank. So they recognize that, notwithstanding the fact that you're not within the so-called inner circle, you don't drink, you don't talk nonsense at parties and things like that. And by the way, if the bank is doing a normal dinner or a party bank-wide, I'm always there. It's that thing where you get small groups of people saying we're going for a drink and all that stuff. I don't do that. And sometimes they go to one pub and the next and the next and the next and the next, and I don't do that. But I do realize that when you interact with people, something, there's this heightened level of respect you actually gain for the stand you take. So notwithstanding the fact that you don't party with them, your character in the office is so above board, the way you carry yourself, the way you communicate with people, you have a very heightened level of respect, to the point that even though you're not a drinking person or you don't get drunk or whatever, some actually respect that attribute. They wish they weren't drinking as much as they do. So they're trying to get you in and they don't succeed, and they actually respect you for that. And so, but I still get the point. It's not as easy as sometimes we say it. And I've worked in typical English banks, and oh my, it's a completely, that's where I can say I feel the racism. I can feel the racism crawling in my skin. Whereas in another organization, which is different, and I've been working in a lot of Arabic organizations, and I've realized that feels more at home, believe it or not, working with Arabs. And so it just depends. But I get your point. It's tough, but I still think that we really need to be at a place where we can stand up and be counted by virtue of our ability and our competence. Yeah. Then we can fight that battle as to should I be here or I shouldn't be? Because without that fundamental element, you really can't be in that battle to fight to say that I should be here or not.
Yeah.
And so that's just my take. As to whether we should be twice better, Govi,
yeah.
My experience, you know, like Latoya, she's double mastered. Yeah, I am not triple, maybe, yeah, double mastered as well. So I've got an MBA and I've got a master's in management in one university and so on. And I've got my first degree and it's all over the place. Then I've got a bit of CFA here and a bit of CIMA there. And it's like you're loading yourself up with all this stuff just to be able to be in a place with someone who just had a degree. And it can be quite frustrating.
Or no degree.
Or no,
Oh, no.
exactly. There are people who are in top positions, even CEOs of some of the banks in this country, who never went to university, believe it or not. But I guess in some respects, when I took some time to look at these scenarios. So we had a CEO who didn't have a degree, and I looked at his background. So he went into banking at 16 and did all sorts of things. Now, within the banking environment, he certainly went for a training program here and a training program there. And what he achieved made his position there. So he also stood up to be counted, notwithstanding the fact that he didn't have a degree. You could tell he's gone on a trajectory. Some of us have come from Africa or wherever in the middle of our careers. So we were not born here. We didn't start from here. Some of these guys started from here. So if he started working at 16, when you have just finished your A-levels to go into uni, but he's actually working. So by the time you are 30 and getting into your job after your double masters, he's walking around with 14 years experience.
Mhm.
You're not going to get the job. I mean, he's got 14 years
You've
experience.
touched on something that I wanted to go to Latoya, and I wanted to go to Georgia about this same whether competence translates. But I reckon time is not on our side. So I'm going to throw to Latoya and Georgia this same question, and to Byron as well, because I think, Byron's situation is unique, right? Go on, Georgia.
Sorry, yeah, because I just need to drop. I think I echo what everyone has said, but I think one thing that has not really been emphasized on is about the network you have within. When I mean the network, I'm talking about like either mentors or sponsors. So people that can speak on your behalf in rooms where you'll never ever be present in. It's always good to develop those relationships. I would say in my time here at Amazon, I've had like 2 of those relationships, and I can see how beneficial. And one was a Black person, the other was not, was not Black, was white. So for being able to, and I had to reach out to him. So sometimes you have to really want to put yourself out there, actually. I had to reach out to him to say, okay, I want to establish this relationship, that this is my work, this is what I've done, and stuff like that. So, but my point is, you need people like that in your career and your development that can help point you in the right direction, that can help speak up for you, that can help get opportunities to you. Because sometimes, and I'm just speaking like from a personal view, there can be a project to be done, okay? And this project can be given to anyone. But if someone out there just says, okay, you know what, I think we should give it to Georgia, she might be able to execute it. Now, the truth about it is I might not even know how to execute it. I probably need to go and learn how to execute it. But I have that opportunity. And the moment I nail that project, then it speaks volumes of my competence. But imagine if that project was not even assigned to me in the first place. I'll just be executing my daily task. Without taking on the extras and it's the extras that put you in the limelight to say, oh my God, this person is the add-on, it's the above and beyond.
So
well,
true.
You might not know that, above and beyond opportunities are brewing somewhere if you don't have this network of people that can help either keep you informed or actually help, volunteer you for such opportunities. So it's really good to, when you get into an organization, to look out for those people. If you're lucky and you have someone and the person's the same, same skin color, then, if you're lucky, it might be easier for you to approach or easier for you. But either ways, it can go both ways. As long as you have someone that is willing to be in that position for you, it's super key. It's a game changer, I'd say.
Quick one, Georgia. Do you think that the Black experience for the born and bred British person, Black British person specifically, is different to somebody who may have come in, whether at the age of 16, at the age of 15, 20, 22, 25. A lot of people come in when they are in their young 20s, 30s, but then grow to understand the system and work into it. Do you think that the experience or the perceptions of them are the same or they're different?
I'll say they're different. And I'll say even the way they interact in workspaces is actually different. So for example, people that, you know, were born, you know, grew up here, they understand some of the things you were talking about, for example, socializing, like the golfing and then the skiing and everything. That's like, I mean, what I have no business with that coming from Nigeria. Where am I going skiing from? You know, but people that were born here, regardless of the color of their skin, they can completely relate to all of that. So it helps them integrate better because they already know everything about the system. But someone like myself, I just moved here 5 years ago. You know, I don't know Jack. In fact, it was worse when I was in France, and I didn't know anything. But someone that was born there has obviously a lot better experience because they know the language, they understand the system, they know how everything works. So the only thing they're trying to do is just to, you know, progress. But you coming in at much later time in life, you're trying to even understand the system and then also try to then progress. So it's like, it's too many things you're trying to juggle at the same time.
But Chris and Latoya, do you think, this is interesting because, you know, there are, you know, we've all come from different places and that, but somebody like Tanique, you've been here, God knows, maybe 20 years, you know, David has been here 20 years, I've been here, you know, 20 plus years and stuff like that. Do you think that in your first initial years, 5 years, 10 years, there's a bit of difference? Or do you still feel that after X number of years? Because it's almost like after you've been like 15 and 20 years, it's almost like there's nothing more to learn because you know everything. What do you think, Latoya, on this one? And then Chris, you can pick up on that.
Yeah, let me jump in on this one because even, you know, the thing about it is that you have left your mother country, let's say that, where you were probably established, did university, etc. And then you've come to this country where getting support, guidance, etc., you have to try and figure that out most times by yourself. Now, with me relating to France and what Georgia said, you know, the first couple of years or the first month I went into France, I starved. I lost like 5 or so pounds. You know, you would think that would be good, but I was like maybe 50 kilos at that time, you know? So I literally starved because I didn't understand coming from Jamaica where all my food was hot food. You know, they don't cook food on the street, so where I must get lunch from? Right. You understand that sort of thing, right? So not only from a food perspective, but okay, how do I get my bus pass? How do I travel? How do I move around? And at that time I spoke French, but I spoke the proper French, where if you're functioning in a society, it's not literary language that is going to get you around. You're going to have to learn the street language, right? And so even that I had to adjust to. And then other things that you have to adjust in terms of how to function and understand the status quos that existed in that society, right? So moving from that and you know, having had my 15 years in France where I learned that, moving over to the UK, you know, thank God I was fortunate. I had Chris as my support center, right? And Chris is the one who actually helped me to settle in the UK. Right. And, you know, pushed and brought things to light. So coming back to, you know, George's point about having sponsorship and mentorship, you know, that I previously touched on, is important if you are going to progress, not only in, you know, an organization, but also, you know, within a country itself, you know? So I think that those two key things, you need to have people that are, you know, identify your network that you can, you know, kind of like piggyback off on, you know, and people that will guide you and push you. And even with our own personal relationship, Kofi, you know, I'm still in this industry quite simply because of the efforts you made to support me as my own sponsor when I was on a project, you know?
Correct. Chris.
So yeah.
Thank you so much, Kofi, and thank you, Latoya. And Georgia made some very, very, very good points equally, which kind of pulled me to put my hand up. You know, one of the things that I also wanted to mention on the back of what Georgia said was that we also need to look out for talents and know how to grow them. because as we get the breakthrough that we desire or want, we need to start having that eye of looking for the talents as we identify a brother or a sister of nature coming through that we say there's a lot of potential there and we're going to help that person to grow, you know, so we have to kind of so nurture them. Another thing, just to add to what Latoya was talking about, it resonated in my heart to talk about adaptation, because that can be truly a challenging yet a unique journey, lived in a new country or a new work experience. You know, coming into this country from Jamaica, I remember one of the nights, some of the nights I was just tearful, wondering. I left my wonderful job and everything was going good. And you know, yes, I came to study, but I felt I started right back from the bottom to work my way up. And but it's so unique because it gives you so much you know, desire to kind of get back up there to where you know you should be. And I just wanted to kind of leave some words just to end on. In looking at the acronym BLACK, you know, B represents how beautiful we are. You know, the L is that we're here for long term. You know, there's so much more that we will give. The A represents the ambition, the ambitiousness that we bring to the table. The C is about our career pathways and how we're going to shape those journeys. And the K represents the key leaders that we will be to society. So I've got no doubt that we will get where we need to get to. Those again are my few words. I thank you.
That's fantastic. Oh, I'm taking
Well
so
done.
much in today. That's really good. I got Mars earlier on, and then I've got Black now. We're coming to the end of it, but so Byron, you've got probably you are the youngest in the group at the moment, and I'm going to switch the conversation now. But before I do, what do you think about what you've heard so far?
So, Pete, let me thank you for bringing this up. I mean, we've had this discussion and I kept telling you you were driving this, so I'm going to take the back seat, and we agreed that I'm not talking today. But yes, I've gotten more than I expected, and you know, time is not even on our side, and we've not touched so much on some of the things that we really wanted to talk about. So I would talk about, or I would rather throw back a question about how these stories can be used to inspire the youth. Because one thing that has run through all the discussions is that we have not been cursing the darkness. We always light a candle for our path. And that is what has brought us where we are. So how can we get our youth encouraged by these stories for them to be inspired? You know, it is easy for people, and my story is very different. And I always continue to say that I'm still new here. I only have 3 years in the UK. Reluctantly, I came here because I was into things that I thought excited me, but family and God has other plans. So I had to start from the scratch, from a level 1. And Georgia would be the person to understand the level I started from, but it never stopped me. I've had prejudices, I've had things that will seem as racial, I see it as ignorance from people, but I overlook them. The focus is trying to prove myself and focusing on what I can do as a person and how my life can inspire somebody. So I would want to throw back this story, this question: how do we use this story to inspire people? Because I'm not sure whether our plan of having a 30-minute documentary would work anymore, because people need to hear all the stories. I mean, it connects, and again, the positivity that runs through the stories, and that is what when we had the discussion, I want other people to hear these stories, and even this would be beneficial for corporate heads to hear how Black people think about the environment that we are created, or what the environment they are creating in their organizations, and how it can be improved based on these stories that we are hearing. But for me, and like Kofi mentioned, I probably am the youngest and most inexperienced person in the UK as we are talking. How do we encourage people who are coming in new, and the youth who would easily play that racial card, to use that as an excuse not to move forward?
Fantastic. That's really good. Now, obviously, that's a great question, and we've got that, but we've come to the end of the session. So I'm going to allow all of you to, obviously give your final comments. I think that, in next year, when we do get the opportunity, or whenever we get the opportunity, we can get together and actually, pinpoint a particular area and have, a more in-depth conversation. But to finish it off, and maybe now that Tanika's back, I'm going to start off with you, Tanika, as I go round for us to come to an end. Number one, what do you think we can do to help improve the situation in regards to selling our stories and telling our stories to our youth? But also, another thing that I really want to gauge is, what conversations are you having with your children? You've got beautiful kids growing up as Black British born kids. What are the conversations that is going on in your house at this stage with them around race, around Black history, around what is it that we've got to make sure they know, and how do they see themselves? I just want you to put all that together and give your final comments as we come to the end of our conversation.
Okay, thank you for coming back to me. Okay, so first thing, with regards to helping, should I say, young Black people or young Black people, for me, I believe in mentorship. So I always say, be the mentor you wanted when you started out for somebody else. I've always believed that. Never too quick to judge, and because a thing with what I find with even with myself, we self-sabotage a lot. Okay, well, and that's probably done due to society, what we've been taught, what we've seen. We self-sabotage a lot, saying, okay, well, you know what, I want the job, but maybe I won't get it anyway. You don't know. Just start. Just try. Just go for it. I'm a part of the Black Speaker Support Group. As you know, Latoya is a part of it as well, where we're trying to spearhead getting Black people into tech. We've got the Power Platform School that's led by Tricia Sinclair, to get people into the Microsoft sphere, to get young Black people into the Microsoft sphere, which is a really good thing that we're spearheading at the moment. And never let someone tell you you can't achieve your dreams. Your dreams are yours. Okay, the conversation that I'm having in my household with my children, I've got a 6-year-old and a 15-year-old. My 15-year-old is finishing school next year. And the path that I took in life and going to university and stuff like that, he doesn't want that path. He believes he shouldn't go to university to be in debt. And okay, I encourage him. And I said, okay, well, if that's what you want, that you've got to plant the seeds now, in terms of your education, your GCSEs, go maybe a business course or something like that to set the foundation for what you want. Because even though you do not want to go to university, you still have to have financial management. You still have to know about money. You still have to know what is it that you need to have to set the foundation for you and the people who's going to be working for you. We do positive affirmation when we get up in the mornings. I am, look in the mirror and tell yourself who you are. I am this, I am that, I am strong, I am worthy, and do not let someone else's opinion of you be fact, So these are the conversations I'm having with my little girl. And sometimes she wakes up in the morning and she's like, Mommy, I am strong. And I'm like, yes, you are, baby. You are strong. My little, that's how I will tell you, my little girl she's so outspoken.
Wow.
So it's just something that in the home, we've got to start that from our home. You know, so when you go out there, they can see that, yes, the children is representation of us, but also they can see that, you know, they're not to be messed with.
True. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tanique, and that's wonderful insight. And thanks for your contribution, Chris.
Thank you. For me, we too have 3 young children. We've got an 11, an 8, and a 5-year-old. And we are Christian. We're from a Christian family. And what we tend to do quite often is to afford them the opportunity to understand the good word of God. You know, we try to get them involved in Christian activities, and we also get them to kind of read a lot, and just trying to let them also embrace culture and what it is, and just to be themselves equally, because as much as parents we can plan and plot the pathway for our children, that might never be their design pathway that the Lord has in store for them. So we have to just always be there as that human being of guidance and protection when they need us the most, where we have to step back in to protect them and lift them back up again and guide them along again a pathway. So we tend to do a lot of that within the household. But one of the key things is always looking at the sacrifice and the value that I want to bring as a human being, for being a beacon for everyone and individuals within my community, so to speak, and beyond. And looking at Black History Month, representing that, like, the freedom of my history, your history, the culture, the education, and most importantly, an avenue to platform voices like what we're doing today. And just that engagement to express within an environment where everyone just feels valued, because just listening to everybody today, you know, it's empowering even more. And you know, your individual story, you can actually feel the values of them, and you know, and that is very important, because we do need that as we develop as human beings. And my role as well, equally as an advocate for people and family, communities development and cultural engagement, is something that I want to continue to celebrate and to be very proud of. And I can put my hand up that many a times I have never always got it right. I have got it wrong many a time on certain occasions. And I know that I too have to sometimes ask for forgiveness and apologies in life as I journey on, because I do believe, you know, that my intention is never ever to hurt the next person that I come in contact with. And those are my few words.
That's so amazing. Thank you so much, Chris. That's amazing. Hi, David. Your final comments about Black history. What should we do? Selling our stories, our kids. What conversation should we be having with them?
Yeah, I think it's just taking it a little at a time, one step at a time, with everyone that you can find an opportunity to help with, whether it's in your church, whether it's in a small network you have, or indeed your children. Tanique's point about the child saying they don't want debt, you know, the first thing I probably would tell someone like that is to say, look, debt is good if it increases value, which in the long term pays off that debt and then gives you more. Because very often people don't think beyond the fact that by borrowing, actually you're enhancing value. He's not borrowing to buy bags and shoes. It's something to increase their worth, which pays the debt and gives dividends over a lifetime. So that's one thing I would always encourage someone to just add the value as much as you can, because it makes a difference. I have a friend within our church who finished uni doing accounting, and I did mention that, look, by doing accounting at uni, you will struggle to get a real accounting role in the likes of, you know, KPMG and stuff. So sign up and do the ACCA as well. And I pushed and encouraged him. Now he's a fully qualified accountant at the age of 25, and he's working with PwC. and he's a happy guy, and that's all because you push people. Again, not that we're doing twice as more, but you're getting yourself to the top. So when you get there, the issue about whether I'm black or white becomes secondary. So that's my encouragement to people, but more importantly, help people as they go along one-on-one. As for my kids, I just tell them to, one, it's good to manage expectations, but if you aspire to something, just work towards it and you get there. So that's just my last words.
Fantastic and amazing. Thank you so much, David. Really good to have you. And finally, to you, Latoya.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Kofi. Really appreciate it. It was a wonderful moment, just sharing with you all and hearing the stories. So in terms of, how we can help support those who are coming, after us, let's say, in terms of settling in and getting that deep understanding of what it is to be Black, whether, in Britain or elsewhere. For me, it's, getting our stories out there, for us to be brave enough to share those stories, to bring visibility. And I think, in terms of activities that have happened, unfortunate and otherwise, happening from last year or year before, coming into this year as well, it's, given us that opportunity to be a lot more vocal, and giving us that opportunity to, for us, as a race, to recognize that, we no necessarily, we no longer need to be silent, or accepting, or, just holding your head down and getting on with it. But we now need to be vocal. We now need to create our own visibility and our own voices, get them out there so that others can recognize that, there is support out there, And in terms of where my kids are concerned, I've got an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old, and they're not born here in the UK, they're French. So it's a question of adjusting for them as well. It's a question of, integrating and adaptation, and which they've done wonderfully. You'd never know that they're French kids. They speak English better than I do with the accent and all. But it's also very much a work at home in terms of what are your expectations? Who are you? What are you, who or what do you identify with? What are your values? What are your beliefs? And then definitely, that accepting environment as well, where if you get something wrong, it's not a crime. You have the space, to grow and learn from whatever mistake that you might have made, because a mistake, it's an opportunity to learn. There's nothing wrong with it. In terms of their fortunes and visions, etc. My kids are very much focused on wealth building. So it's all a question, almost just like Tanique, in terms of how can I do university without getting into debt? But David has now given a whole different perspective. So it's really a question of how do we support the vision that we have implanted and that God has given us, to guide them through as well. So, last few words, it's really a question about allyship, about mentorship. It's about sponsorship, getting into, those spaces where we can have voices, or voices can represent us, so that we can grow in the areas that we've chosen.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Latoya. This session has been awesome. I've really enjoyed every single bit of it. It's been short, but very insightful. I'm so blessed we managed to get all of you guys. Not everybody turned up. For those of you who turned up, you really, really contributed and you made it. Thank you so much. I'm sure Settlement Support can reach out to you again in the future. This session was recorded. And so at some point, we'll be making it available either publicly, or we'll be making it available privately through our YouTube platform. And we're going to make sure we share it with you, and then you can have it. I think that Black history has come a long way. But when you live in a country that is dominated by a Caucasian population, irrespective of what part of the world it is, I believe that we need to continue sharing the stories, continue speaking up and building ourselves up, supporting each other, sponsoring each other. I think is a wonderful thing, and we've got to continue sharing this. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for this session. God bless you all. Bye.
Cheers, cheers, cheers.